Well, we are your election headquarters, and of course, today we're going hard on the Assin North By-Election. But let's just contemplate with these graphical works. Let's take a look at what the dynamics are in that area, who has won what, especially considering the MPP and the NDC, and what we can forecast ahead of this election. By forecast, we're not saying we're going to be telling you which candidate is going to win, but on the back of the dynamics since 1996. Of course, in 1992, we know the NDC at the time swept all the seats. There was a no-show from the end of the New Patriotic Party, so we'll leave that out. But from 1996 till now, what has the picture been like all the way up to 2020? We'll take the picture from there. But if you look right behind me, this is the Assin area in the central region. And there's the north, there's the central belt, and there's south. Let's now look at the dynamics. You would find in Assin North, the member of parliament who was ousted, James Jachikwason, he polled 55.2% of the votes in the 2020 election. Now, of course, when you come to the central belt, we have Kennedy Ejapon, who polled some 57.3% to take the Assin Central constituency. And finally, in the Assin South area, Deputy Minister for Education, John Intim Fojo, who actually polled 39.3% of that vote. But then when we take a look at the pattern, disaggregated pattern, focusing on Assin North and the parliamentary election results. Now, you would see, per the dynamics, the blue representing the MPP and the green representing the NDC. So you would see the pattern, the falling pattern as far as the NDC is concerned, all the way from around 1996, and then some sort of a rise moving into the years, and finally in 2020, what the figures were. And of course, the MPP as well. So you would see the figures there. In 1996, the MPP scoring some 34.7%, with the NDC amassing some 63% of the votes. And then moving on, we would see the other dynamics. In the year 2000, you would see the appreciation. Now, a sort of reverse of the parameters. Now, with the NDC just getting a little under 40%, 39.7%, and in that area, Kennedy Ejapon scoring some 56.6%. Then we go to 2004, again, 36.5%, even more woes for the NDC here in 2004, with Kennedy Ejapon polling some 58.6%. But from here, you'll see a bit of a downward trend, because from 56.6% and a high of 58.6%, then you would see the figures beginning to tumble. Let's go now to 2008, 42.9% for the NDC, an appreciation of about 6 point something percentage points, and a loss for Kennedy Ejapon, 55.1%, the lowest we have seen up to this point. And then we come into that crucial area with Ambre Samuel, and you would see the dynamics there as well when it comes to the NDC and the MPP, 44.2% versus 51.6%, and that was in 2012. Special scenario that played out there. And then we come to 2016 and then 2020. So in 2016, we would see that the NDC would poll some 39.2%, and Abnadrowa Mensah would carry the day with 56.8%. And finally, we would then move on to the year 2020, where in fact 44.8% is what the NPP would get, dipping for the first time in a while over 40%. That is getting below the 50% margin. You would notice that in 2012, that was a scenario, 44.2%, and in 2020, 44.8%. And that was when James Jachikwason polled 55.2%, akin to what Kennedy Ejapon polled in 2008 by 0.1 percentage point or 0.1 percentage point. And that was how he became Member of Parliament. But since that time, he has faced his legal woes and now he is contesting again the very seat that he supposedly won in 2020. So let's get now into some of the other details. I have joining me right here on the set, Joseph Akable. He is our legal correspondent, also our man on the ground when it comes to James Gyakye-Quayson. This man knows a lot about James Gyakye-Quayson. He's always in court about him. Good to have you.
Hi, Ben. You good?
All right, so we're talking about the dynamics in Assin North, looking at the voting pattern, and it's quite an interesting picture. As we load all of them, you would see the MPP has been predominant in that area, but you would notice that in recent times, the NDC has also come strongly. I take out 1992 because we all know what happened.
Yes, they didn't participate in the parliamentary elections.
They didn't, but in 1996, it was a comfortable win for the NDC. But since then, from the year 2000, where they won, the MPP won by a stroke of a margin, 50%, then 56% as far as the parliamentary is concerned, all through up to 2008, it was the MPP. Then there was a resurgence in 2012 with the NDC. And now the Gyakye-Quayson factor playing in once more with 55.21%.
And so the 2012 is significant again because
both ways.
That was when the constituency was created. The Assin North, as we have it, was carved out. Then we now had Assin Central, then we had Assin South as well. And so for the first time, so you see that
split.
Over here is still Kennedy Japan from 2000 winning. But this is the presidential results. So when he was picking up the seats, the presidential candidate was also winning in the same way. Then in 2012, when this is carved out, the NDC picked the seat and also they managed
won
to
the presidential
for the presidential as well. Then you come in here to 2020 to see what happens here. So you see 2020 again, the president wins here, but for the parliamentary, James Gyakye-Quayson wins.
And that was the interesting dynamic because Akufo-Addo won by some 15,000 or plus votes. But when you look at the parliamentary, James Gyakye-Quayson got some 17,000 plus votes. So typical skirt and blouse in Assin North. But like you mentioned, it's been, you could say, it's predominantly NPP because when it was Assin as a whole, that constituency, it had almost always, since 1996, so for 3 times running, 2000 to 2008, 3 electoral cycles running, it had been in the grips of the MPP. And then the interesting thing happens when it's carved out in 2012. Yeah. Then we see the dynamics. Then Kennedy Japan now represents the central part of Assin, and he continues with the win.
Yes. And if you go to Assin South to Intim Fojo,
Reverend Intim Fojo.
So it tells you that the Assin area generally may seem to be an NPP stronghold of sorts. But for the parliamentary race, the NDC has won it twice. And that again tells you on the quality of James Gyakye-Quayson. But
to have been able to break
that cycle. But the point that others on the other side will point out to you is the fact that, look, what worked for James Gyakye-Quayson is simply the Assin Breku area. Because the argument is made that that is where most of the votes are, and that's where he hails from. And so that is how come he was able to win. And mind you, he beat a previous member of parliament.
He did.
The lady had won the seat before.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the MPP going into this particular election opted, so they had the choice between a former member of parliament and someone who does not even vote in the area. I mean, Charles Opoku at Akwa, and he doesn't vote at Assin North. But they opted for him because he's from Assin Breku, which is where James Gyakye-Quayson comes from. So you see clearly.
So it's basically to dilute the votes and to create some sort of, look, this person is also from here. So if James Gyakye-Quayson won because he was, let's say, a constituent, a member of that community, how about we get someone who is also from there? But the question is whether it will work. If you've listened to the rhetoric of those on the street from yesterday, from today, or Hemingteria, Richard Kwedunako, and some of the rhetoric. In fact, this morning, there was someone who was engaged with, and on pain of prejudicing anything. I mean, you can tell that people definitely have decided by this morning where exactly they are going to vote.
I mean, most people would have decided, but I mean, as politicians, as they are campaigning for votes, you never give up until, I mean, the last ballot drops in the box.
But as of now, all campaigning has ceased, and right now, all you can do is hope that your campaign message has percolated, trickled down.
I mean, Ben, trust me.
And the people will respond to it.
Ben, trust me, the last minute interaction. You see, that's how come. I mean, Richard shared a video of people. There's a claim that there's some place where money is being shared and people were rushing there. It's very similar to what happened at Kumewu recently.
Right.
I mean, the politicians still.
But you've seen the Chairman Wuntumi one.
Oh yes, I've seen that one. But you see, people always believe that before the voter goes into that booth, you can still influence the person, and so they take their chances. Even though the law does not, they are not supposed to be doing a campaign around this time.
That's exactly the point.
They will still try to interact with them and try and make that point to them to allow for it to happen. And so generally, this is our Upper Dentra East.
So Upper Dentra East.
I mean, it's not too far from Assin North, and you can see clearly that is. I mean, the color tells you the story. It's been
the MPP all through. Look at the figures: 70%. The only dynamic you would note is the trickling numbers, the drop in numbers. So from 70.5% in 2004, when the fervor was really high, now it goes to 63%, falls to 58, comes back to 63, and now it stands at 55, which is the lowest in this pattern when it comes to the presidential. Now let's look at the parliamentary. Similar trend, 68.1% in 2004, falls to 59, falls to 54, appreciates to 55, and falls to 54 again. This may not be the lowest. In fact, so this would be the lowest, 2012. 54.38, which was in 2020, would be the second lowest. So both ways, you see a depreciation in the number of votes, both for the presidential and the parliamentary.
But a trend also tells the story that Upper Dentra may be having a similar situation, a bit different from Assin North, but it appears the presidential candidates tend to excite the voters more. I mean, the NPP presidential candidates.
Right.
Because you are seeing
look at the voting patterns.
You are seeing 68. So he's getting more votes than his parliamentary candidates.
63 to 59.
He's getting more
58
votes.
to 54.
He's getting more votes. He's getting more votes.
The closest is in 2020, 55.04% to 54.38%. But still, there are more votes on the presidential.
It means that the NPP as a party, they need to do more in terms of their selection of their candidates, or perhaps the candidates that are picked also have to do more work when they go into parliament in terms of that particular area as well.
So let's look at some more dynamics now. Now, Isikuma Odobeng Brakwa. This is a prominent, popular constituency. And the voting pattern there as well. Very interesting. So when you look at the presidential, here there's quite a mixed situation, because in 1996, it was 58.2% for the NDC. And they also swept the parliamentary seat, 58.9%. Here you would notice that in the presidential, there was 0.7% less votes compared to the parliamentary candidate they presented. But then you come to 2000, and then there's a pattern that turns on its head. 51.7% for the presidential, 51.9% for the parliamentary. So it's a win both ways, but 0.2% increment as far as the parliamentary vote is concerned. Akabli, let's look at the rest.
2004, 64.00. The MPP picks that up in terms of the presidential. For the parliamentary, 58.30. They pick that up as well. Let's see how it shapes up. In 2008,
then there's a switch.
They win the presidential 50.20. The parliamentary, the MPP wins with 49%. Yeah.
Which tells you in those dynamics that there are other candidates who managed to get a number of votes that prevented either side from getting 50%.
Then in 2012, the NDC picks both sides.
Both sides.
Yeah. Then the MPP back again.
So interesting dynamic. Let's look at 2020 and what happened.
The 2020, you have the MPP still winning again for the presidential, then the parliamentary, the NDC picking again.
So look at the pattern.
So you have 1,
a clear
2,
win,
3, 4 here. Then you have
straight win for the NDC in 1996. Straight wins for the MPP in 2000 and 2004. It's a split in 2008. It's a split in 2020. But then a return of the NDC both ways and a return of the MPP in 2016. So when you look at Isikuma Odobeng Brakwa, it tells you that this is a clearly swing split constituency when it comes to both the presidential and the parliamentary votes. You cannot play with a constituency like this. You cannot sit on your oars and
the
think
MPP having just a slight
everything.
Edge. It's just,
slight edge.
Just 4-3. Just 4-3. So
slight edge.
20.
Look at 2008.
Yeah.
49% to, and comparatively, as far as the presidential is concerned, 50.2%. It also tells you that if in 2008 the NDC won in the presidential 50.2%, but dipped and the parliamentary candidate for the MPP won, it also means the skirt and blouse thing happened.
Yeah.
Those who voted for the candidate of the NDC in 2008, that is John Evans Atta Mills, may his soul rest in peace, not all of them voted for the parliamentary candidate.
Yes. The same thing happened in 2020 as well. So 2020, the presidential MPP, but they did not opt for the MPP candidate in this particular instance. They opted for the NDC. And so, I mean, I think we are getting the sense that we've now gone beyond Assin North itself, within the area itself.
Within that catchment
the
area.
MPP still has a slight
It has a bit
advantage,
of an edge.
But there are lots of other factors that tend to move it around in terms of depending on how it goes. And so, what's your answer to that question? Who has the edge?
Well, you know that Global Info Analytics report that came out recently? It gives Charles Opoku a 1.1 percentage point advantage. 1.1 percentage point. But the question is, on voting day, dynamics don't necessarily follow any logic. And you know, according to that same report, about 6 to 7% of the voters are undecided. Now, if those undecided voters get there and they go and do C, NACO, then it could go anywhere. Or if, like you were saying, last minute decisions are made and then they decide, oh, my friend says this and that, so you know what? I think I'll opt for this person or that person. Those could change the dynamics.
And the 6%, they could also be those who, you know, there are some people when you ask them who you are voting for, they don't want to tell you.
They don't want to tell you,
so
but they know.
Decided.
But they know.
So maybe it's actually not a 1% difference. It may be the 6% on the side of the NDC or the side of the MPP.
It would likely be a split. It would likely be a split across the board. But for me, for political watchers, this is going to be one very interesting election because there are so many dynamics to it. One, it will bode well for the party that wins in Parliament. Not that it will create any substantial additions. It's always one or two. But bragging rights, the MPP has already won in Kumawu. Kumawu, though, is a purely MPP seat. So it was a no contest, so to speak. In fact, there was an appreciation of votes for the NDC side. But when you look at this instance where it has swung, and especially on the back of what has happened with James Jachikwason, some of those that we interacted with, they actually said that, guess what? Look, on the back of the way things have happened, we want Jachikwason restored because we feel an injustice was done to him. Others would also be in there and say, you know what, he's not done enough in terms of development. I heard some of them say he had promised that he had come with his own resources and he didn't even need the common fund to be able to facilitate projects and that he had not lived up to expectation. Others say it's because his tenure has been hobbled with all the court issues and all of that. But I'm telling you, this is going to be one election to look out for because some have said that this would indicate whether the MPP is still popular as a government in that area and maybe as a reflection of the national. Others also say if the NDC wins, it shows that the MPP is losing steam and that going to break the 8 is not going to be possible for them. So the dynamics are myriad. I don't know what your permutations are.
I mean, for me, I generally believe that by elections, the biggest outcome is always propaganda value.
Right.
It's just the propaganda.
And that's the whole point, propaganda.
Yeah, I mean, just to make the point that, look, people do not like the MPP anymore.
Yeah.
People are dissatisfied, they're unhappy about how you're managing affairs.
People may not like the NPP as much, but they still prefer the MPP to the NDC. That is if the NDC loses.
If the NDC loses, I mean, right. Possibly. So those are the issues that come out of it. In terms of the way we want to extrapolate and look at the 2024 election, I don't always side for it.
I mean, this is a by-election. Yeah, you can't expand a by-election to cover.
And I always avoid that because one is constituency specific. The issues are different. So, for instance, can we say that Kumewu, because people are satisfied with the MPP, they voted for the MPP candidates? Certainly no, because it is a strong MPP seat. But there is a danger that it comes with in terms of the by-election in this particular instance. And the challenge that it sometimes comes with is the fact that the incumbent party, they want to get a seat. And on the parliamentary makeup, it may not be significant, but if the MPP gets this seat, it gives them a bit of a breathing room. We all know the challenges they've had with Sarah Asafo.
Right.
very difficult to get into
the member of parliament they lost had to replace and all of that, and the difficulties in running government.
They had to bring the chieftaincy minister into an ambulance, the former chieftaincy minister. They had to bring him into an ambulance on the presence of parliament during the approval of the budget, for instance. If they get this seat, it gives them that breathing room. The NDC, on the other hand,
there was even that member of parliament who had an accident who was still dragged to parliament. He had to come. And when you look at the mangled vehicle and all of that.
So this is one that can give them a bit of a breathing room so that you know that you don't have to necessarily have everyone when it's a crucial business to be dealt with.
Right.
The NDC, on the other hand, well, they are in the minority anyways at this point in time. They would want to win it because it is more or less a verdict of sort on what has happened to James Jachikwesin as well.
Right.
So if indeed what has happened to him is due process of law and the narrative that he has been booted out in an unfair manner it does not sell to the electorate. So if he wins, it means that, look, it is true, he was booted out unfairly. On the other hand, if they vote for Charles Opoku, it means that the people in the constituency, either they don't care about all these issues about whether it's unfair, he has been booted out. They don't care about it. They didn't influence them.
Or maybe they are not happy with James Jachikwesin's performance in the first place.
But has he even had time to even perform in the first place?
That is the...
He has been injuncted for more than a year.
Before I go to Mordecai Kwashi, who is an MC Lejokuku Municipal, I'll be joining you shortly, sir. I just want to find out that the president's comment on the fact that he wasn't influencing the judiciary in any way as far as James Jachikwesin was concerned. Then he brings up Sakande, you know, the Dramani Sakande issue, and says, look, it's only what befell Sakande that is befalling James Jachikwesin. But then in another breath, he says, but why would you want to vote for someone who would end up going to court and this and that? And some have read into that, and they say legally, this is like inducing the cause of justice, because you're basically suggesting that this person, don't vote for him, because even if he wins, he will end up in court and likely be stripped of whatever. Again, I mean, what do you make of that?
There are two ways to look at it. So the first way is the point you've made. I've also heard Muntaka Mubarak say that they have a plan should James Jachikwesin go to jail. He says they'll have him hold on to the seat like they did for Abu Dhabi. He says in the even Amwatin case, Amwatin had to resign himself.
Right.
Does that mean that he's suggesting the outcome already? I mean, yes, those comments, if they are taken in terms of substance, they could be deemed to be prejudicial. I've also heard former President John Mahama make the point that James Jachikwesin will never be jailed.
Right. And that too is another extreme.
Because the court is hearing the matter. So I think that both parties have generally made comments that have put the court under a bit of pressure. Because no matter what the outcome of his prosecution will be, if he is convicted, I mean, it's an assumption. If he is, people will make the point again that the president said it. If he is not, people also make the point that, well, former President Mahama was right. He said he can never be jailed and it's happened. I think that it's generally important that the political actors, especially with the legal process, they just allow it to go on, and they shouldn't necessarily attempt to create the impression or try and predict the outcome. That is what prejudice really is. Any such commentary that makes it very difficult for the court to go about its work in a fair and a judicious manner that we expect it to do. It's a matter in court. There are two possible outcomes. Even three. The state could also discontinue the case. The AG could enter an early press conference and say, I'm not interested again. Or he could be discharged on maybe some technical grounds, or he could be acquitted and discharged, or he could be convicted. I think those are all permutations that are possible. But we should try as much as possible not to put too much pressure on the court to deal with this matter. And that's how come I really respect how the judge hearing the case dealt with the issues surrounding whether the trial should be put on hold or everything. She had set 3 hearing days, says that we'll hear the case daily afterwards.
Right.
She goes to court, they move an application, said, okay, if not been served, let's come the next day. We come the next day, you move the application, said, okay, come for the decision on Friday. Effectively, Friday don't come, he has the time to
go and do your campaigning. Though it had been a hobbled process, he hadn't been able to go. But now, at least I think the reasoning of the court in all of this has been pretty apt, spot on. Allow the person to be able to campaign, do something, because then that would have signaled, okay, the thinking about political influence. Look, they're not even going to allow him to campaign and all of that. So I think it's been pretty above the board so far. Akable, so let's do this. Let's go on the phone lines. Mordecai Kwashi is Municipal Chief Executive, Lejokuku Municipal Assembly. He joins the conversation. Mr. Kwashi, a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, sir, and good morning to your
Great.
audience.
We know you are passionate about this Assin North by-election that is coming up. Do mention, what is your take on what has happened so far, and what would you say are your expectations ahead of today's vote? In fact, voting should have started by now.
Okay. The first point I'd like to make is that the stakes are extremely high in this election, and we as the NPP have put in all we can to ensure that we win the election. The second thing I want to point out is that this is a by-election, and the dynamics are essentially different from what you would have in a general election. The biggest change being that the government is already known. So the people of Assin North would have to take a decision between the options they have. Who is more likely to be able to influence the allocation of resources, developmental resources in their direction? Politics is essentially about power for the purpose of the development or improving the lives of the people. And that is why I think that today they will be making a very fine and a very intelligent choice. The choice today is between ensuring that the development that has probably been held in abeyance because they haven't had a properly active MP, a fully empowered MP, and all of that, that comes to an end, and that in the next 18 months or so, they get their fair share of development because they have an MP who is going to be a critical MP in Parliament and who will ensure that he pulls towards them what they truly and rightly deserve.
Mr. Kwashi, you make mention of their fair share of development. Development doesn't lie with a member of Parliament. Development lies with the DCE, with the MCE. So we have had these for 6.5 years. If the place is not developing, even with the member of Parliament contributing his bit while going to court, would it not then be a failure of the system? Because the DCEs and MCEs are like presidents in their districts and municipalities. What do you say to that?
Yes, but you also know that you need your MP to be able to use his influence as a lawmaker to pull certain development projects in your direction. That is also true. And it's even more important in a parliament that is as tight as we have. If you have your MP being the one who, as it were, holds the string or holds the balance, it is very, very real that you will have influence to be able to do things that if you had an opposition MP, he wouldn't be able to fully do. And that is what the electorate have to take into consideration. And I am confident that they will take all of that into consideration. And by close of date today, we will see an outcome that shows that they have voted for the development.
Mr. Kwashi, thank you so much for engaging us this morning. Mordecai Kwashi is Municipal Chief Executive, Lejokuku Municipal Assembly. Let's now go on to Maxwell Lukuto, the NDC parliamentary candidate for North Tong. Mr. Lukuto actually is in Assin North currently. A very good morning to you, Maxwell.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm well, under the circumstances. Anyway, so let's find out. You are the lawmaker for South Tong, I beg your pardon, but you find yourself in Assin North today. I know many members of Parliament, like Roxy Nelson Dapiamepo, the Member of Parliament for South Dai, among others, are in Assin North today. What is the picture you see on the back of the IGP's visit yesterday, on the back of today and the commencement of voting? What is your reading of the situation?
Yeah, generally security has been beefed up within the whole of the Assin constituency, Assin North constituency, and together with Assin Central and the South. You have a lot of police presence all along the way, the town, within the township, at major junctions, and so that's the basic thing you see. And for me, it stands to reason because there are a lot of barriers. You see barricades, checkpoints all over. And for me, yes, it's usual with by-election, but this is supersonic in terms of the police presence. I wouldn't know the intel that police are picked such that they would want to beef up security to that extent. but so far, as I've observed, there has not been any issues demanding serious attention from the security services. I have not yet picked up a chaotic situation that demands the attention, but I want to believe they are playing so fair with all of us. Station where I am observing, we have as many as 11 police officers at one village branch or police station, and usually you see about 1 or 2, but now you have about 11 of them at a particular police station. And but for me, the police are our friend. They are supposed to keep order, and they are protecting all of us. If there are issues, I see them coming in to resolve the issues fairly.
Maxwell, do you feel intimidated by the presence of
Not
the police?
at all. Not as a person. And we have psyched our people to also understand that the police presence will not intimidate them. We have made them understand that the police naturally are our friends. And so they are only in to keep peace. I don't think that people are being intimidated. Because you see the lines, long queues very early in the morning. People are trying to vote before they go to the marketplaces. People will vote before they go to their farms. And I don't see people being intimidated.
All right. To wrap the conversation with you, what are your expectations ahead of today's vote? Is the NDC's James Jachikwason going to carry the day? Polls have revealed that he likely would be edged out by about 1.1%. What is your reading?
The reading on the ground, we have spoken to the people on the ground, majority of them in their communities, and they see the issue with Assin North and Jachikwason as a way of persecuting him wrongly, and that he is their MP and they also want to continue working with him. The issue about being him, therefore, are not issues people are taking so seriously. Yes, of course, the NPP think that they can use the attend the situation, but what I read on the ground, I see it to be his game. Even though tight as people would call it, but I see it to be Jachikwason's game. You see a lot of the MPs moving tirelessly, and I believe that our efforts are going to inure to this. I believe that Jachikwason is going to carry the day. That's my reading on what the situation is.
All right, Maxwell Lukuto, we're grateful for your time, and we'll be hearing from you likely later. He is NDC's parliamentary candidate for South Tong. Let's now get in touch with the Director of Communications for the New Patriotic Party. I'm talking about Richard Ahiagba. He's been on the ground. He's still there. Mr. Ahiagba, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Hello, Mr. Ahiagba. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning.
Okay, it's a bit better now. I hope your voice isn't sounding like this because you are too tired from campaigning.
Not exactly.
Okay. You've been there for a number of days, if I'm not mistaken, because I've heard you a day or two, interacting with the media. With what you've seen on the ground, what are you looking forward to today when polling comes to an end? What are your expectations?
Well, thank you very much. By close of day today, when all the ballots are counted from all the 99 polling stations, you will be reporting to Ghanaians that the New Patriotic Party has won the Assin North. That will be your report this evening.
Now, in terms of the dynamics, in terms of the use of money to influence the process, the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagman, has been talking about this moneycracy creeping in and how we have to really get rid of it, that canker. Then we hear of monetary influence in Assin North, and then we see, I don't know whether you've seen that video with Chairman Wuntumi, your Ashanti Regional Chairman, doling out cash. Others have tried to explain away. What is your reading on that vis-a-vis what the Speaker of Parliament said?
That's a good call, generally, because democracy in this nature is to allow for citizens to express their views on the basis of policy and the propositions of political parties. So I think that on balance, that must be protected, and I think it's being protected. But where people are frequently abusing that provision and using money to sway people's decisions, I think that when it's seen, it should be disallowed and people should speak up against it.
So, I mean, he's a member of your party. If you say people should speak against it, what would the leadership of the party? You are director of communications. What should the leadership of the party do in instances like this?
No. Oh, but I think the point you were making, you were talking about the speaker. Is that not the speaker's situation you were speaking about? That he is opposed to...
Specifically now, about Chairman Wontumi. You recall when the NDC had its parliamentary...
Okay.
When the NDC had its parliamentary primaries, and we saw that lady in a 4x4 vehicle doling out cash, not once but twice. We spoke about it and asked for action to be taken. So in this instance as well, it is actually on your shot if you're watching TV. So what do we do in such instances?
Forgive me, I'm not watching TV as you speak. And the particular video you're talking about, I haven't seen it. And then also there's a need for us to probably speak fast. So I haven't seen that, so I'll be unable to comment on that specific matter. But I was giving you a general position in the interest of democracy to try to advance the incident where people are voting on a basis of ideas and the propositions of political parties rather than being overtly swayed with other interest considerations to be able to vote. But I'm not speaking directly to what you are alleging has happened on video because I haven't seen that video.
All right, we have video evidence. Maybe later you can take a look at it. Of course, this is streaming live. But I want you to just address this matter for me before you go. Now, there are three contenders in this election. The NDC's contender, the MPP's contender, so James Jachikwason, Charles Opoku. Some say it's a straight fight, but of course there's also the LPG's candidate. My question to you, if your candidate, Charles Opoku, loses, what would that mean for the MPP? And if he wins, what would it mean for the MPP?
Well, the if in both cases is if the MPP wins and if the MPP wins. Those are the two conditions that we should be deciding. Because in our mind, the New Patriotic Party will win, given the work we have done. So the other if is not a matter for consideration. Certainly, the New Patriotic Party will win. And that will give government an ample space in Parliament to be able to advance its development agenda and accelerate the pace of the economic recovery we are seeking to come, so Ghanaians can get the breathing space to be able to go about our economic activities. As individuals, improve our personal economies and the economies largely to be improved. Yeah. So the two conditions you're saying are just one. If the MPP wins, if the MPP wins, it'll be good for Ghana.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Richard Ahiangba, for joining the conversation. He is Director of Communications with the MPP. Now, you can see in your shot the arrival of Johnson Esiedun Ketia, the chairman of the NDC, and he likely is in one of those voting centers or the polling centers. A rousing welcome he's receiving. Let's now connect with Richard Kwadwonyako, who is on the ground. Richard, what exactly is playing out currently? Richard Kwadwonyako, if you can hear me, I'm asking what exactly is playing out. We've seen Johnson Esiedun Ketia there. Walk us through what is happening.
You need time, Charlie.
Well, there we are. We'll be bringing you the scoop on that situation in Assin North. We just saw Johnson Asiedu Nketia entering the scene there as far as the Assin North by-election is concerned. I still have with me Joseph Akable. We'll just be deliberating on some of the commentary so far that we have heard on the Assin North by-election. So interesting matters. You heard Richard Ahiangba. I gave him the options. I told him, should the MPP win? Should the MPP lose? What are going to be the dynamics? He says there's only one option. The MPP is going to win. I mean, all of them will try and play this until it's like a fight. Everyone will say we are going to win until one person's jaw is shifted and all of that.
Before we go to bed, everyone will see their smoothness level. But I mean, it's that of confidence, and you can understand why. I mean, they've done a lot of projects in the area in the last couple of weeks, right from when they even before the seat was declared vacant. The MPP had pitched camp there. I remember the NDC had made the allegation that why are they all of a sudden showing up there when the Supreme Court had not come out with this judgment? Why are they doing that when the Parliament had not declared the seat vacant as well? But nonetheless, they went there, started campaigning, they started constructing roads. The Vice President went to commission a 32-kilometer route. I mean, we've all had this discussion back and forth about how politicians deliver development only during by-elections or periods around by-election. But that notwithstanding, it still happens. As to whether that has an impact, we can look to various places for examples. I mean, Ayawaso West Wagon, even though it was violent, a few weeks prior, they were asphalting the roads in that area. The MPP managed to keep that seat. They did the same thing in Kumewu. But what makes this one a bit different is the dynamics of the constituency. And like we've demonstrated over the period with the data that we have, it shows that it's a place that, depending on how good you play your game, you can win the seat. And that is how come the MPP and the NDC.
And one thing
There's
I
an
noticed.
LPG candidates, by the way.
Yeah, the LPG. I made mention of it. 3 of them. Yeah. So definitely 2 people are going to lose today. 2 people are going to be on the losing end. There will be only 1 winner.
There will be 2 winners.
How so?
So when after the election, the losing candidate always says Ghana won.
Well,
so there's Ghana winning, then there's the actual winner, then there are those who
that's an interesting dynamic. But one thing I've noticed that really stood out for me, you see how in the US, for some electoral areas and all of that, it was so feisty between the Republicans and the Democrats that you would see maybe former President Trump, or you would see a lot of bigwigs come, or you would see a Joe Biden and others, senators, bigwigs show up. In this instance, it's so big. We saw the former president, Mahama, there. We've seen the current president there. We've seen stalwarts of both sides. This election, make no mistake, it's crucial.
Very.
It's crucial.
I mean, very. And I mean, you could see the message that was put out there by the president, for instance. Beyond, I mean, what has been trending all week has to do with the comments about Judge Equation. But he made an interesting point. He says that, look, you voted for me here. He said, I won here.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't vote for my party.
It goes back to the skirt and blouse pattern we were talking about.
He says, you voted for me here.
Yeah.
So this is who I'm asking you to vote for this time.
Yeah.
Vote for that person. Then you have Mr. Mahama also make the point that, look, government has failed in terms of the economy. They are not doing well. This is an opportunity to show them that you can decide what you want for yourself. And especially when all of a sudden they are doing projects and everything. So, I mean, both sides, like I said, propaganda value is expensive. Like it is cheap but very valuable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
and on the back of this,
to do it, but when you get it, it helps.
Joe, on the back of this, whichever party wins is going to run with it.
Yes, of course.
They are going to run with it.
Yes.
And we know the dynamics, but we'll be interacting with those political party members when we get there. For now, though, let's bring back Richard Kwejunyako. He's on the ground in Assin North. Richard, if you can hear me now, what exactly is happening? We just saw Johnson Asiedu Nketia entering the fray. What is happening where you are?
Apart from Johnson and Seydou Nketia, there are other big national figures that have also come here to observe the process. So gone by was the 2020 running mate of the NDC, Professor Jena Opoku-Agyeman. We've also seen Marietta Biruapio, former Attorney General. We've also seen NPP bigwigs who have been moving from one polling station to the other. I must say that the process has been generally smooth, especially at the centers. There is some kind of calm because the security agencies are here to ensure order. But outside the precinct of the voting area, that is where on few occasions we witnessed some skirmishes, we witnessed allegations and counter allegations of vote buying. A short while ago there were some heated exchange between the minority leader KC Latuforsen and one MPP panel member on same subjects about the fact that there is a sharing of 300 Ghana cedis, 500 Ghana cedis, 200 Ghana cedis by both political parties. And so that has been the issue here. But apart from that, things have generally run smooth. The Electoral Commission set the stage around 7 a.m. the elections had started already, and people started forming the queues around 6:05. At 6:05, I could count at one of the polling centers, I could count about 32 of the people already queuing, waiting eagerly to cast their ballot. And so generally, it's been smooth. Don't forget that there are 99 of such polling stations here in the Assin North constituency, and we have over 40,000 plus voters that are waiting anxiously to vote. Now, when Professor Jena Opoku-Agyeman visited some of the centers, she indicated that she was very, very happy with the turn of events, and she prayed that it will continue to be like that to ensure that there will be some smooth exercise that would end peacefully as well. Other people are also here, and they've been also saying the same thing, sharing the same sentiment that Professor Jena Opoku-Agyeman about the process. They feel that the process has generally been smooth. Ben.
From you, there have been accusations of vote buying, money exchanging hands. Have you, with your cameras, been able to capture anything related to that? The claims that are being made?
Well, the closest that we have come, the closest that we have come to this allegation of vote buying is when we saw some people wearing some Wellington boots, and we're told that yes, these were part of the resources that were being shared as part of this by-election. But we've not captured the sharing of money.
The Wellington boots.
Captured the sharing of money from either the MPP or the NDC, and so. There are Wellington boot, bags of rice, DSTV decoders, we have oil, cooking oil, and other things as well. So these are some of the things that we have heard, but we cannot verify because our cameras have not captured, and we do not have any shred of evidence about these allegations from both sides of the political divide.
So which side makes this allegation of the distribution of Wellington boots, oil, DSTV decoders, among others? Which side is making the allegation?
Well, so generally, a lot of these allegations are coming from the NDC. In fact, they started, the people that started were some supporters perceived to be NDC. They said that there was a house, and so they pointed to a house that these monies were being shared, and so it prompted the security agencies who went to the house, but there was nothing really, there was no outcome as to whether they indeed found some people sharing money. But apart from that, it is not only the NDC that has been accusing the MPP, but the MPP have also been accusing them that, well, if they are sharing, then it means that you are also sharing and all of that. So it's from both sides, and we cannot say that it's only the NDC that is sharing or the MPP that's sharing. But you see generally that the people that are waiting in the queues are excited, they are eager. They want their terms to start speaking now because it's been weeks of campaigning, heated campaigning, and now is the D-Day. By close of day today, we should find who whether the NDC's Operation Maintain worked or the MPP Operation Recapture the Seat will also work. And so that is what generally appears to be an issue now.
Richard, before you take leave of us, I spoke earlier to Ohiming Teria, who interacted with a few of those going to vote. Now it would be difficult to do that. But at the time, polling hadn't started. And from the sentiments, you got a picture of where some of them were going to vote, which candidate they would vote for. For you, were you able to do that? And what sentiments did you gather if you were able to do that?
Well, so it's been from both sides. You meet other people that are saying that, well, we want to still go with Joe Kwesi because he's been frustrated. He came to help us. He's been frustrated, so we'll still go with him. There are others too that say that, well, Joe Kwesi did not tell us the truth. In fact, when he contested in 2012, 2016, he at that time did not renounce his citizenship. And so based on that, we are going to vote against him. So it's been from two of the sides. But where we are currently standing is Assin Breku, where the two candidates come from. In fact, we are waiting anxiously at the polling center where George Achikwesin will be casting his ballot. He's not been here yet, but there are big wigs of his political party that have come to visit the polling stations to ascertain whether things are running normally. But after Charles Opoku, we all know that he does not have a vote in this constituency, and so there is no polling station that has been identified for him to vote at because he has no vote. For Bernice of the LPG, we are yet to identify where she is going to vote at, and so that is currently what's happening here.
Richard, I was engaging Ben earlier. We were talking about the importance of Assin Breku, how crucial it is to the outcome of the by-election. In terms of your interaction with the people there and being in that particular area as well, do you get a sense that if they do the counting in that area and the results come in, that will give us a picture of who may be likely to win in this particular exercise?
Yeah, so it is not only Assin Breku, but it appears that the voting pattern of the communities or the towns that are dotted along the main Assin Fosu, Assin Praso highway, they have a voting pattern. Most of the time they side with the New Patriotic Party, and then the hinterlands will go with the NDC. But now Assin Breku has become very significant in this by-election because George Achikwesin comes from here. His house is just 200 meters away from where I stand. Charles Opoku is also hails from here. His house is about 100 meters away from where I currently stand. And we have people that have come out to say that, well, Charles Opoku, even when he had not even conceived of contesting in any political position, he has been supporting them. A case in point they make is the district assembly. You know, this district was carved out of the Assin Fosu municipality, and so he gave his house out for them to use temporarily, pending the time that the assembly or the district will have the resources to put up a facility. They also tell us about some of the things, the boreholes that have been drilled by his organization in the hinterlands within the Assin North constituency. If you go to George Achikwesin, they say that, well, he started very, very well until the court cases started where he was distracted. But even so, they point to the street lights that they enjoy at night, that Assin Breku used to be very dark, and so he procured a street light for them to put on all these light poles, for which reason they say that had it not been the frustration he's going through or suffered, he would have done a lot. So the argument, they make a case for each of the candidates, and they say that it is for this reason that we will go for this person or that person. So Assin Breku is one key area that we are looking for. It is the turf on which this by-election will be fought. And by close of day, should Assin Breku fall to either the MPP or the NDC, then we will safely conclude that the election has been won by the political party that wins Assin Breku.
Richard Kwejunako, we're grateful that you were able to bring us the scoop from Assin Breku in the Assin North constituency. That is Richard Kwejonyako. Interesting picture there because Assin Breku is where these two gentlemen hail from. I'm talking about James Gyakye-Quayson. I'm also talking about Charles Opoku. So, indeed, like you were mentioning, whoever wins that turf, that polling station, would have some upper hand on the other candidates because there's also burners of the LPG. But very quickly, before we come in with an interaction, let me bring in Musa Dankwa. Musa Dankwa is with Global Info Analytics, and they've been coming out with a number of projections on the parliamentary and presidential front. Mr. Dankwa, a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, too. Thank you for having me.
The latest poll that you came out with on Assin North projected the MPP's candidate, Charles Opoku, to win by 1.1 percentage points. How long ago was this? How relevant is this poll to today's election?
Right. Let me make one correction. We didn't say he's going to win by 1.1%, I must say. We said he was leading by 1.1%, with 6.9% of people undecided. The poll was carried out between 23rd and 26th June, just 2 days ago. So he leads by 1.1%.
Right. And what does that imply? What are the implications for today's voting, especially with that 6 to 7% component of undecided voters? Is it too close to call?
Well, it is too close to call, but let's go back a bit of history in Assin North in the last 4 weeks. The first time we polled there, Charles was leading 67% to 38%. And the last poll, they are hit to 46.7%. He has lost almost 18% in the last 4 weeks to where we are today. And per our calculations, he was losing 1% every day. So you could see that the momentum is with Gyakye-Quayson.
The momentum is with Gyakye-Quayson?
Yes.
Why? Why do you say that?
It is because consistently, week on week, he has been appreciated in the polls while Charles has been declining.
So Gyakye-Quayson has been appreciating in the polls. Charles Opoku has been depreciating, declining in the polls. That is why you think Quayson has some sort of edge.
Yes.
But
and also, in the top 5 electoral areas, that contributes 38% of the vote. Gyakye-Quayson is leading in 3 of them.
So how many are they? And you say Gyakye-Quayson is leading?
18 electoral areas.
Okay, and Gyakye-Quayson is leading in how many?
In the top 5, that contributes 38% of Assin North votes. Gyakye-Quayson is leading in 3 of them.
So in the top 5, he's leading in 3. I have 2 key questions for you. Assin Breku is crucial to this election because both gentlemen hail from there. In fact, in the last election, it is attributed to this. Part of why Gyakye-Quayson won was that he was a Doyen. He was from there. And so there was massive support. How does that affect today's polling? And how do you respond also to the fact that, according to the same report, it has suggested that the electorate is generally buying into the MPP's campaign message in Assin North. So what you're telling me versus this, there appears to be some disparity.
Absolutely. But from what we have seen, I don't think they are buying the MPP's message. And I'll tell you why.
They are not buying into the MPP's message?
No. Let's look at the Breku, which is crucial. At the moment, Charles is leading 48%, Gyakye-Quayson 39%. 12% of people in Breku are undecided. So they could take the race anyway. Now, for Charles to win and win big in the Breku, he has to do so to strengthen his position across the constituency. Now, the key area for me to look at today will be Kushia, where Charles is currently leading by 78%. And that is quite huge. So whatever happens in Breku, they could split the vote in the middle. But then it's Kushia that will determine really who really wins the race.
I mean, Mr. Dankwa, I'm looking at your poll results, and I'm just curious. In terms of, it appears you conducted a series of polls leading to today. Were they the same participants you engaged or different participants?
No. Voters have taken a cross-sectional report across the constituency, it is likely some will have been picked a second time. But they go to constituency on those periods and interview people in all the electoral areas. And the report we have shared is a cross-sectional report.
Yeah, I mean, I was asking this because of the point about the fact that the lead that Mr. Opoku had was declining over the period, and the efficacy of the message that the MPP was putting across in the area, whether it was going down to the people to make the point that if it's cross-sectional and at any point in time you had the option of maybe not picking the same people, then it could mean that may not be necessarily the right conclusion to reach. I mean, about the appropriateness of the message going down. Wouldn't you agree with that?
No, let me give you two reasons from the poll. You see, cross-sectional report is the views of the people that you pick. Not necessarily the same people, and it's allowed in the second message.
Yes.
Right.
Now, we ask people whether the work the government has done would influence them in the decision. 70% of them said no, including MPP supporters. Majority of MPP supporters said no. NDC said no. Other parties said no, including floating voting.
So maybe, is there more light you want to throw on that answer? Is there anything else you want to add on that?
Yes. I mean, what is really tilting the case towards Charles has been Charles' own personality. He is popular candidate in the constituency. No doubt about it. In the first poll that we did that he led, people were citing who he is and what he's been doing. So
okay.
Declining in the polls is not because of Charles. It's because of what the strategy MPP has adopted in Assin North that is affecting Charles' chances.
I didn't quite get that. What is affecting Charles's chances?
It is the campaign strategy the MPP has adopted in Assin North that is impacting on Charles.
Which is what?
Right. In the first poll, the baseline poll, we asked people a particular question, which we presented last Sunday. We asked them if they were offered money, an inducement to vote for a candidate, what action would they take? 31% said they would take the money and vote for the candidate. 44% said they would take the money and vote against the candidate. Now, on Sunday, those metrics have changed. Now you have 78% saying they will take the money and vote for the candidate. And 16% said they will take the money and vote against the candidate. And within this time, this is when Charles has declined. It means that people were taking the money, telling you that they will vote for you, but in a sense, they will not vote for you.
That is an interesting dynamic.
Yes. If it allows Charles to campaign on his own with the little support from the party, Charles will not be in the position that he is today.
All right. So Mr. Dankwa, just to cap off the conversation, I think your point is made, the thrust of it. Just to cap off the conversation, it is too close to call. You have already made mention of that. But if you had to stick your neck out as a poster, as someone who has gone to the ground, which candidate would you say likely would carry the day today?
From the data we see and the trajectory of the race, I would go for James Jachikwesin.
You would go for James Jachikwesin?
Yes.
Musa Dankwa, we're grateful for your time this morning. When all of this is said and done, we'll come to you and see what your take will be on it. Musa Dankwa is with Global Info Analytics. Joseph,
Ben, just a
interesting conversations we've had.
Yes, I mean, just a quick point on the sampling I was pointing out.
Right.
Because they did a series of polls. They didn't administer one poll. They said they did a number of polls. So my question was that if it's a cross-section selection,
right,
it means that what you may be seeing to be a decline may not necessarily be a decline.
Right.
Because if you talk to Ben today and Ben says, I'll vote for James Jachikwesin, and you talk to Ben again, then he says, I'll vote for Charles Opoku, you can see that the message has maybe changed.
Right.
But if it is in the nature of you are not tracking whether you are getting the same people, then it means that it's simply impossible to tell. And so the point again becomes that what the poll only shows is that over the period of the polls that you were conducting,
right,
it appears that those you were interacting with, the outcome of it was changing this way. It was changing this way.
Right.
As against the fact that saying that, okay, look, it appears the MPP strategy over the period is not working. Because until you have the same permutation, it's very difficult to know for certain that that is not working.
So what the dynamic is in statistics or research like this, the likelihood, unless you have a fixed group that you're going to be speaking to from time to time, it becomes difficult. But the strategy he is using is firmly within the script, and they do that once it's in the catchment area, and they're using different people. Of course, they can extrapolate and say that this is what
the message not working over the period by virtue of the fact that there's a decline in the gap between.
You have a point there, the challenge there, but he also has a point from the research point of view that they would use different people and then use the same metrics to apply that they used to group one to apply to them. But what you're saying is also crucial because you're not speaking to the same set of people. So you would not know whether among the first catchment group there's any change in there. But for you, from all of what you've heard this morning, from the data we brought to our viewers, from the different people we've spoken to, Maxwell Lukuto, the other gentleman, the Lejokuku member of the Assembly, among others that we've interacted with this morning, they're all digging their heels in and saying, my side will win. But Joe, I mean, you know on the ground.
No, it's interesting. Before we went to do the interactions, I actually asked you, who has the edge? That was a question I actually asked you. You're asking me the same question again. I think it's too close to call. I mean, if I'm
too close to call,
close to call, yeah. Too close.
This one, it's on a knife edge.
Knife edge, yeah. Too close to call. I think I'll wait and see the outcome.
You know, this is one of the most, for me, throughout following politics, the political landscape in Ghana, this, for me, is one of the most exciting, most anticipated by-elections, or even, let me say, parliamentary elections, for me, for a while, because the sort of fervor, political fervor, the sort of commitment, resources that have been put into Assin North, I'm just waiting to see. But my final bit, Joe, I wish the political parties, the NDC and the MPP, would not wait till it was a by-election or something to do the right thing and make constituencies feel they actually were worth it. Yeah. We've seen it in Kumau, we are seeing it in Assin North. Why can't we be this excited and get things done in the constituencies rather than wait when you need the vote, then you'll be running around like...
I agree with you. I think it's something that we need to deal with once and for all. People deserve development and they have the power. That is how come they are going into houses and sharing all sorts of things.
Anyway, this is how we cap off the conversation this morning. Our initial conversation on MSMEs. But for now, it's all the hard politics. We are heading to Assin North. We are on the ground. Stay with us. We are your election headquarters. And this fine gentleman here will also be coming along as we give you the analysis on the Assin North by-election. From us to you, we wish you the very best. And JoyNews Desk up next.